The internet reception on Yema has been all over the map in my research, ranging from great to disappointing with quality control issues and questionable customer service at best. I must be honest, these are not my experiences, but it's what I've read in numerous forums and subreddits. I felt I needed to experience the watch on my own terms. Enter the Yema Diver. This is the first reference that spoke to me, and how refreshing it is to have a watch reference that isn't a printer or fax name. I'm looking at you, Seiko SPB453. This is 100% a throwback vintage diver's watch in every sense, from the faux patina lume, the Monin case, which Yema has marketed as a major selling point, and it has a bit of history, which we'll discuss later. There's a clean, zero index, no graduation bezel as well, and in my research, I really couldn't locate any Yema model in its history that resembles this watch. I would say it's a heritage tribute to the popular dive watches of the early 1960s to the late 1970s, I would say. CWC Addict had this article on the significance of the Monin case, and I highly recommend you give it a good read. Now, the Monin case is a distinctive dive watch case that's fairly flat in profile, rounded off in shape. It has these wide beveled off lugs and a signature flared crown guard. It's important to note that Monin, the French watch company, did not produce these cases. They actually had them created or outsourced by MRP-SA, which still exists today. MRP-SA is known for having patents related to the unidirectional ratcheting bezel, and in fact, if you look under some Heuer Monin case dive watches back in the day, you'll see that they are double stamped with the Monin and MRP-SA embellishments. It's important to note that this case was made popular through 100 different watch brands that have used it over the years, ranging from Heuer all the way over to Zodiac, Zenith, even to this day, Momentum, who have reissued the C Quartz, uses the same watch case, and CWC with their popular military divers watch, the Royal Navy divers watch, that is. Let's talk dimensions. The watch measures in at a crowd-pleasing 39.5 millimeters in diameter. Now, yes, you're going to have some people that will say this is too small and that this is either too large of a watch. I think it's a wearable size for a majority of wrists, to be quite honest. 46 millimeters lug-to-lug length, which means that it'll fit relatively compactly and nicely on a variety of different size of wrists, and only 11.7 millimeters thick, with a wonderful box sapphire crystal that measures in at 2.2 millimeters thick. I begin to understand why the Monin case was so popular, and it's for its comfort. On my 6.5-inch wide wrist, the watch sits flat and square, centered into my wrist, as well as the fact that the lugs curve just enough that they follow the curvature of your wrist, if you will. As you can see, there's hardly any gap between the bracelet to the case and my wrist as well. Having said that, I think that 46 millimeter lug-to-lug length definitely helps this watch. It is a good size for a dive watch, in my opinion. Okay, let's talk different surface treatments that Yema has used on this watch. It has a very wide polished bevel on the side of the lugs that seems to obscure the weight, visual weight and thickness of the lugs. I quite like it. The case is also heavily curved inwards. I love the beveled off, or rather curved, side of the mid case that transitions beautifully to these flared crown guards that seem to just cradle the crown very nicely. The side of the case has horizontal brushing that's done to a fine standard, and the top of the lugs have vertical brushing met with concentric brushing on the very simple bezel that have no markings at all. This is a handsome dive watch, I have to say, and it's initially what allured me, or rather drew me in. It seems to be reminiscent of the likes of the Omega Seamaster, and you have a little hint of Rolex Submariner in it too. But then it is unique in its own sense that the Yema crest was oil pressed into the case back, synonymous with other Yema watches, and I think it is a handsome looking logo. Mind you, the thing I don't like is just how the case shape and how short the lugs are means that you're not going to have a whole lot of space with straps that are on the thicker side, meaning that I would have preferred where the holes are drilled for the strap and spring bars to be further out in the case rather than closer to the case. Powering the watch is the Yema Caliber 2000, a successor to the Yema 1000. Yema claims it's an in-house movement. I'll let you be the judge of that. In my research, it was a bit of murky waters on this subject. It does have a very nice winding action. The crown threads are pronounced and definitive. I'm able to unthread it very easily and screw in the crown. There is a bit of a wobble through the action of the crown when fully unscrewed. I would have preferred tighter tolerances in this regard. However, I'm happy to report that overall, the winding action of the movement and the time setting has very little play in it, and I think that's a good thing when you're operating the watch. Some of you are going to bemoan the faux patina used here, but I think it's in keeping with the style of watch. I love the Arabic numerals and the hour indices on this watch. The coin edge bezel, also a very nice touch. The fact that it has no indexes and no gradations is a benefit here, as the dial is already fairly busy. So if the bezel was fully indexed, I think it would take away from the watch. Bezel action is good, 120 clicks. It is positive in resistance. However, my example doesn't fully line up. It actually is just slightly askew, maybe 2 degrees to the right. An area of improvement would have been how the end link integrates with the bracelet. There is just a bit of play between these two components that I wish Yema could have improved upon, and that would vastly bring up the bracelet in solidity. Mind you, it is a handsome looking bracelet. It's a beads of rice style looking bracelet met with a twin trigger release clasp that has a functional dive extension as well. So you can definitely use this during the summertime when your wrist does expand. Though the clasp is quite long, which is something that you'll have to find compromise in, as you may have less of a dive extension, the curvature of the clasp does sit well with my wrist. No complaints with it sitting askew. I found it laying centered on my wrist throughout the day. It is a comfortable clasp and bracelet combination. The end link is divorced from the bracelet, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. Key point is that you're able to switch out the spring bar should it wear over time. The downside is that if you were to switch out the spring bar, you have to find one of appropriate thickness to fully ensure that there is no loose end link or play in the bracelet to the end link when it pairs up with the watch. I must say that the finishing inside of the end link is a bit rough. Although this is a $1,000 watch, I can't ask too much. However, would a quick release end link be a nice option? Perhaps. In terms of ergonomics and visual impact, I give the watch a passing grade. Now, the thing that I'm a bit mixed upon is the travel case that comes with the watch. It's already deteriorating, and mind you, this is how Yema will supply the watch to you, is from this travel case. So make of that if you will. If you're not one for fancy packaging, well, this is functional, and I think it's thoughtful that you do get something that you could reuse. I'm pleasantly surprised at the dial quality, especially the hands as well too. No flaws, no dust, no tool marks on the hands, and it is a fully matte dial. The printing upon 4x magnification is sharp. It has to be commended that Yema has put in the effort here for dial quality. I do have to say that this is a very simple dial, and meaning that the more simple dials can be, more often that manufacturers have to push harder to execute them as well as possible, as there is not much to look at. So on the basis of dial quality, 4x magnification, you can tell just from the loomed indices and the Arabic numerals too, extremely sharp and well done. I always find it fun to look at the graining of the loomed Arabic numerals on these watches, especially so close that you can just look at the minutiae of details in the hands as well too. And like I said, this is 4x magnification. A lot of watches will show some defects at this point. So I spent $1,000 of my own hard-earned money to get the experience of Yema and this watch. Based on the visual aesthetics, it drew me in. There are some points of contention for me. The longer clasp, wish it was a little bit shorter just for my own wrist comfort. I think that the other component is the bezel. The bezel never fully lined up with the dial. It was always 1.5 clicks out from the top of 12 o'clock, which annoyed me. Combined with the fact that I just wasn't really confident with sending this watch into Yema, I decided to move it on. Thank you for watching. If you do enjoy the video, please like the video, leave a comment, and I'll definitely catch you in the next one.